Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with The Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. Let me take a drink of water. Not plain water, by the way. All right, guys. So welcome to the broadcast. If you're watching right now, make sure that you say hello and also let me know where you're watching from. And if you're watching it on replay, make sure you go ahead and hit replay or say replay just to let me know that you're going back and watching it. So good to see you guys. Really is. I look forward to every Monday evening to be able to help you look a little bit deeper in health and help to see things from a different perspective. And tonight's no exception. The title of tonight, what I'm going to talk about is obesity when hunger becomes a liar. Okay. This is why hunger can become a liar if you're not careful. I'm going to explain to you why, and this is going to make a lot of sense to you as well. One way to know if someone doesn't understand hormones and obesity is when you see someone who suffers with obesity and they just say, you know what, I don't know why this person just can't turn it off. Well, I'm going to explain to you why that actually is. So I'm going to talk to you about obesity when hunger becomes a liar. So that way you can understand that you can become the victor and not necessarily the victim. So again, guys, if you are watching the live broadcast, go ahead and say hello. Let me also know where you are watching from. And coming up, guys, Tuesday, October 8th, which is a week from tomorrow at 6 o'clock p.m., this is our in-person inflammation event. Excuse me. So if you have any issues with weight loss resistance, cancer, infertility, thyroid disease, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, hormone imbalance, guys, the way that you approach this first is inflammation. I'll even show you when it comes to weight loss and things like that tonight. But this is an in-person event. So guys, if you are from the Chicagoland area and you want to work with our office one-on-one, then make sure that you get registered for that event. Guys, this is a can't miss event. The reason why is I'm going to help you bridge the gap between inflammation and how it is the spark that leads to every single chronic degenerative illness that's out there. And yes, obesity is actually one of them as well. So one of the things that you need to do is make sure that you click on our Linktree account. You'll see it on every single one of our platforms. And when you click on that, you will see the very first thing that'll pop up is the inflammation event. Work with me in person. Okay. Now, just so you know, I'm not working remotely. I know people yell at me because I'm not working remotely. That's because our office is full with people who want to work with us one-on-one. And the people that I want to work with first and foremost is in my community. I will actually say it's in my community because I have a tremendous desire in order to make a difference in my community. And that's why I want to work with those people first and foremost. So go ahead and click that link and you'll see that link pop up. You'll click on that. It'll take you to Eventbrite, take you 60 seconds to register for that event. And if you are registering for it, the only thing that we ask you is just please show up. Okay. Just please make sure that you're showing up to that event. My staff will reach out to you. They'll confirm that as well. And we start promptly at 6 o'clock. And if you're not early, we consider you late because I like to start on time, especially. So inflammation event, make sure that you get registered for that. That's going to be a week from tomorrow for our next event. Okay. Now, tomorrow, I believe, is October 1st. I don't know what date it is sometimes, but I believe tomorrow is October 1st. And we're going to be kicking off the Wellness Way Sleep Well Challenge. That kicks off tomorrow. So I've had some people reach out. How do I get connected with this? All you have to do is you can go onto Facebook. If you're watching from Facebook, just type in your search bar, the Wellness Way Challenge page, and you'll be able to find that because there's many different challenges that go on throughout the whole entire year. I know they've done a no sugar challenge. They've done a protein challenge. This is without exception a great challenge. Sleep well, just only because a lot of people have problems staying asleep or falling asleep. And there's a lot of different reasons why. So it may be blood sugar issues. It may be, I talked about sleep last week, about GABA reception. There's a lot of different reasons why people have problems with sleep, but this is really designed. This is a free challenge, and it's really designed to help you start to develop good, healthy habits when it comes to your sleep. So make sure that you go that. And I even left a link on my Linktree page, and you'll be able to find that too. So if you click on that Linktree on any one of our social platforms, you'll be able to see that you can join the Sleep Well Challenge in October, which starts tomorrow. So make sure you get registered for that. And guys, the media team at the Wellness Way does a fantastic job because they have created so many free resources for you to download for free. So if you look at this, they talk a lot about what's the challenge, why is sleep so important to health, and I talked about that on our live last week. I hope you guys were able to catch that. If you didn't, go back and watch that. How much sleep do I need? When should you be getting sleep? And what is the circadian rhythm? That's just a small portion of all the different resources that you can download, obviously, for free. So go to my Linktree, join the Sleep Well Challenge in October. I can't wait to do things that help people improve the quality of their life, but a lot of people do suffer with sleep when it comes to that, which leads me to this question. And yes, I did get this question because anytime you see an influencer and they're like, a lot of people ask me, and then promote, what no one asked them about. How much sleep, Dr. Nate, do you get per week? How much sleep do you get per week? And I know maybe that was a genuine question, or it may be like, you're just not really, you're not walking the walk. But I will tell you this, I get about 60 hours of sleep per week. Okay. I get about 60 hours of sleep per week. And without fail, I'm in bed by 10 o'clock and I wake up on my own at 6:30. So I just have a hard, fast rule. I have to be in bed and I have to be trying to sleep at 10 o'clock. And usually I'm asleep within a couple of minutes. And then I'll naturally wake up according to my circadian rhythm at about 6:30. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, it must be nice. Yeah, it is. It's really nice. And the reason why I can do that is because I've set up my life to be able to do that. Okay. Just remember, I saw an awesome video by Ben Bergeron, who is a CrossFit trainer. He said, don't have time to go to the gym. You chose that. Don't have time to sleep. You choose that as well. And you can set up your life any way that you want. It may not, and I'm not saying that it's going to be easy and it may be difficult, but when I decided to set my life up according to specific terms, one of the amazing thing is that opportunities just opened up all around me. So that's my rule, is in bed by 10. And it doesn't matter if it's a Friday night, a Saturday night, or whatever. I'm in bed consistently at the same time. And I am waking up on my own at about 6:30. Sometimes I'll even take a nap too, if I need to. But if you're saying it must be nice, just remember you chose that. But if you join the Sleep Well Challenge, you can start and make it a priority. You'll notice, hey, there's a lot of things that are opening up for me. And that's because your brain will start to see the opportunity behind it. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about tonight. Obesity, when hunger becomes a liar. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of hormones, the hormones of hunger, specifically things like leptin and ghrelin. But I want you guys to understand this. Hormones are powerful. Hormones can make you feel a certain way, but at the end of the day, you still have the final say. Okay. And that's why, sometimes I'll have patients that get a little bit snippy with me and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, it's just my hormones. And I say this, I say, hormones make you feel a certain way, but you still have the final say. You're not an animal. You have an intellect and you can choose, hey, this is pushing me in this direction, but I can choose to respond a different way as well. And this is what comes down to is, are you the victor or are you the victim? And there are so many people who become victims based off of their hormones versus saying, no, I'm the victor. I'm the person in charge and I can change some of these things. And I'm going to take this, the bull by the horns and start changing those things and start looking for new opportunities. So the reality is you are a human being and you always, at the end of the day, get your final say. So let me ask you a question. Am I truly hungry? Dr. Nate, am I truly hungry? Now, this probably will offend some people because I don't go a broadcast without offending at least one or two people. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to live my life trying to skirt around the issues. I will attack them head on, and I'll talk about that at the end. But are you truly hungry? And here's the test that I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and look down. And if you can grab fat Or maybe if you're standing up and you look down and you can't see your toes, then you are truly not hungry. You're truly not hungry. Yeah, you may want to eat food, but there's a difference between psychological versus physiological hunger. Very few people have ever experienced true physiological hunger, but a lot of people will experience what's known as psychological hunger, meaning I think I'm hungry, but in reality, physiologically, I can skip a meal and I'm still going to live and I'm going to be just fine. That's why I say that hunger can become a liar 100%. I'm going to explain to you why in just a second. Before I do that, I want to go over an interesting concept because there's a lot of dietitians out there that they talk about, hey, you intuitively eat. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because a lot of people can't intuitively eat anymore because their hormone sensitivity has actually been bowled over. And they say, eat when you're hungry. But then what's interesting is when it comes to thirst, they'll say, drink when you're not thirsty. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Eat when you're hungry, but drink water when you're not thirsty. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And so you have people who are eating whatever they want, and then they're trying to drink a gallon of water every single day. And I'm going to say this, which is a more accurate cue? Is it hunger or is it thirst? Is it hunger or is it thirst? I'm going to say this, it's always thirst. You got people guzzling down a gallon of water every day without any kind of electrolytes. And the thing is this, is you have to understand that hunger become a liar, but really thirst is not going to become a liar. So a lot of people, you don't need to drink a bunch of things unnecessarily as well. So let's go over the hormones of hunger. And I want to talk about the two main hormones. I'm going to go to the Cleveland Clinic and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. But the hormones of hunger are leptin and ghrelin, not ghrelin. Okay. There's actually a doctor on social media who basically does gastric bypasses, who should be well versed when it comes to the hormones of hunger. And he called ghrelin, literally called it ghrelin. I'm like, oh my goodness. And you're giving this person $35,000 to reroute your intestines. This is terrible. So the hormones of hunger are leptin and ghrelin. So I want to take you to the Cleveland Clinic and let's talk about leptin, this hormone specifically. And I want you to understand what it is, what it's not, and why people develop what's known as leptin resistance, much like insulin resistance, okay? What is leptin? Leptin is a hormone your adipose tissue or your fat tissue releases that helps your body maintain the normal weight on a long-term basis. It does this by regulating hunger, by providing the sensation of satiety or the sensation of feeling full. Now, what's interesting, scientists discovered leptin in 1994. So this is a hormone that wasn't even discovered more than 30 years ago. But what was interesting, when they discovered leptin, they thought that people who were overweight or obese didn't have enough leptin. So then they thought, well, maybe if we just gave them the hormone leptin, then they would stop, shut down and be more in tune with their hunger cues and things like that. But it wasn't not enough leptin. It was becoming leptin resistant, or the inability to be able to hear that hormone response, particularly in the brain or the hypothalamus. So think of this. Leptin is a hormone that's made by your fat tissue. Okay. What's the function of leptin? Leptin's main function is to help regulate the long-term balance between your body's food intake and energy use or energy expenditure. Leptin helps inhibit or prevent hunger and regulate energy balance so that your body doesn't trigger a hunger response when it doesn't need energy or calories, okay? Leptin doesn't affect hunger levels and food intake from meal to meal, but rather acts to alter food intake and control energy expenditure over a longer period of time to help maintain your normal weight. Leptin has a more profound effect when you lose weight, okay? As your body fat, adipose tissue decreases, your leptin levels will also decrease, okay? Which signals your body to think that it's starving, okay? Not necessarily, not at certain body fat percentages, okay? And this can stimulate intense hunger and appetite and can lead to increased food consumption. This is why when you get down to a certain body fat percentage, you'll become a lot more leptin sensitive, which then you are going to be a lot more in tune with your hunger cues and things like that. So leptin is secreted by fat cells, which makes you wonder, the more fat that you have, the more leptin you're going to have. So why do people have such a hard time shutting off or being able to not eat, specifically when don't have any kind of physiological hunger, and it's more psychological? There's a reason why. It's called leptin resistance. So the Cleveland Clinic goes on to say this: what is leptin resistance? If you have leptin resistance, your brain doesn't respond as it normally would to leptin. Since it's constantly being stimulated by leptin, you don't get the sensation of feeling full or satiated. This has caused you to eat more, even though your body has enough in fat stores. The seeming lack of leptin and leptin resistance, it's not true. It's not that you don't have leptin, you actually have leptin resistance, also causes your brain to enter into starvation mode. In an effort to save energy, your brain decreases your energy levels and makes you use fewer calories at rest. Now, listen to this. Leptin resistance thus further contributes to obesity and causes additional weight gain in the form of fat storage due to stimulating hunger and decreasing metabolism. Okay. So, one of the things with people with leptin resistance is they really have lost the inability to stop eating, and you tend to be just a constant grazer and you tend to eat all the time. This is one of the reasons why, if you put on a hard, fast rule for people, especially who are experiencing leptin resistance, and you can actually measure this, by the way, and say, I only want you to eat at these certain times. And this is why things like intermittent fasting or time restricted eating can actually be beneficial for them. What are some of the symptoms of leptin resistance? The main symptoms of leptin resistance are constantly feeling hungry and increased food intake despite having adequate or excess amounts of body fat. So this is why it's almost like the more fat you put on, the hungrier you become as well, which then becomes a problem being able to tap into those true hunger cues as well. Now let's talk about ghrelin as well, because ghrelin is important too. What is ghrelin? Ghrelin is a hormone produced by your stomach. Other parts of your body, such as your brain, your small intestines, and pancreas, also release small amounts of ghrelin. But I want you to think of that as a hunger hormone produced by your stomach. What does it do? It increases food intake and helps your body store fat. What's the difference between ghrelin and leptin? Well, leptin decreases your appetite, while ghrelin actually increases it. Ghrelin plays a role in short-term control of appetite, while leptin controls long-term weight control. Okay. So I want you to think of the difference between those two. Now, I want you to think of your body having a thermostat, and leptin is kind of the thermostat as far as letting your body know like when you have body fat and when to turn it on, when to shut it back off. And that's what a thermostat does. If once it reaches a certain temperature, the air conditioner might kick in or the heat might kick in, depending on where you have it set at, and it will get it back up to a certain amount. And once it hits that temperature, it will shut back off. The problem, the problem with leptin and leptin resistance is that it just becomes broken. So you've essentially lost the thermostat on when to actually shut off eating. So you tend to just overeat way too much. Okay. And it's kind of like this if you have young kids. I have 4 kids, 1.5 all the way up to 17 years of age. But here's what's interesting. If you have young kids and you're going to go on a road trip, you put them in the back seat, and then as soon as you pull out, they just start fighting. They start asking the question, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And you may answer them, yeah, we got another hour and a half to go. Just be patient. But then when they keep asking, eventually what you do is you just start tuning them out. That's essentially what the brain does too, is that there's such an abundance of leptin that it becomes less sensitive to those to the response of those hormones, so that it doesn't hear those cues to you to shut that down and to actually stop eating. Okay. This is why I have a picture of smoking. No, I'm not promoting it, but I want you to think of this. If you have a problem with nicotine resistance, in which some people do, which is why they have to smoke 2 to 3 packs a day, no one starts off smoking saying, yeah, you know what? I can't wait to become a pack a day smoker. It might be a couple of cigarettes and that's all that you need, because your brain is very sensitive to it. But over time, you lose that sensitivity to nicotine, which means you need to increase the amount of smoking in order to get that same physiological response of nicotine. So here's the question. If you want to improve your nicotine sensitivity, then stop smoking. And if you want to improve your leptin sensitivity within your brain, then lose body fat. It's quite simply, that's what you need to do. Now, think of this. If you were at 2 to 3 packs a day and you went to your doctor and you said, Doc, listen, I think I'm nicotine resistant because I smoke 2 packs a day, but I don't get the same response I used to when I was only doing 4 or 5 cigarettes per day. And the doctor, in all seriousness, said, well, maybe you should increase that up to, 4 packs a day. Then you'll definitely be feeling it. But if you look at what they do, essentially that's what they're doing, because I see doctors give people copious amounts of insulin because they're insulin resistant, and they think, I'll give them more insulin and that'll take care of the problem. And it only does it temporarily, only to eventually make the problem worse and worse. So this is why, if you want to become more insulin resistant, then one of the things you have to do is stop doing the things that's causing a massive insulin dump inside your body, which is going to be sugar, processed sugar, and things like that. And don't let anyone tell you that processed sugar does not make a difference with that. Because I see people try to do that, or they say type 2 diabetes is genetic. And I'm like, oh my goodness, come on, seriously? But that's essentially what they do. And that's why I've seen people come in who are taking multiple units of insulin, and I've seen that their insulin levels are at like 900, when in reality what they should be is like 3 to 5. That's where their insulin levels should be at, and they don't respond to insulin anymore, which is why they can't shuttle sugar into the cells, which is why their blood sugars are always running extremely high. Okay, now I'm going to give you actually a clinical example too. So here's a person that came in and their insulin levels were at 60, over 60. Very extremely high. And in fact, I would like to see people's insulin levels to be in between 3 and 5. And then if you look at her leptin levels were over 60. Okay. And because of that, she was extremely insulin resistant, which is why she was in pre-diabetes range. And her fasting blood sugar was also extremely high as well. Now, this is about 4 months later, and I want you to see when we retested this, you can see her insulin levels went from 60 down to 15, okay? 60 down to 15, which is still running high, but that's going to take a little bit of time in order to be able to get that low. But then you'll see that her A1C went from 6 down to 5.2, so her average blood sugars went way down, no longer pre-diabetic as well. And then we also measured leptin levels, and her leptin levels went from 63 down to 34. Why did the leptin levels actually decrease? And one of the reasons why leptin levels decreased was because she lost a lot of body fat. And when you lose a lot of body fat, you are losing the cells that's actually making that hormone leptin. Is that a good thing? Absolutely. So because of that, she can become way more in tune and know when to shut off eating and when to have feelings of fullness and when to know this is when I should eat versus this is when I should really start shutting it off. So that's why you have to ask the question, are they even measuring these levels at all? Are they even measuring insulin levels, not just A1C, but measuring your insulin levels as well? Because she was extremely, extremely insulin resistant, heading towards type 2 diabetes. So the skinny of it is this, is if you want to control your hunger long-term, lose body fat, okay? Short-term, what do you need to do short-term to help get you through this? I would say this, eat more protein. And the reason why is protein tends to stay in the stomach for longer periods of time, stretch the stomach, helps you to feel more full for a longer period of time. Here's what won't make you feel very full. Eat a Butterfinger. Eat a Butterfinger. You want to eat another one and another one. And in that small amount of, I wouldn't even call it food, a food-like thing, in that small amount is a ton of sugar, ton of calories and things like that, which makes it very easy to overeat, okay? So hyper-processed, hyper-palatable foods are really the biggest reason why this is happening, okay? And here's another thing in order to control hunger long-term, stop eating carbohydrate-rich processed foods. I mean, this should just go without question. It's just stop eating that. Just remember this. No one developed leptin resistance, meaning you can't hear the signal of leptin anymore because of the absolutely high amounts of leptin that are circulating in your body. No one gets that way from eating too much salmon. Nobody gets that way from eating too much broccoli. No one gets that way from eating too much, sirloin. You don't get that way, but how you get that way is you eat a lot of food that has very calorie dense and it's just manipulated so that you want to eat a lot of it, which causes a lot of fat storage, which then will cause a lot of leptin secretion, which then causes leptin resistance, and it absolutely obliterates your hunger cues. You got to stop doing that. And somebody even asked me this today because they went to their endocrinologist and they wanted to put them on GLP-1 agonists, okay? A GLP-1 agonist. And if you've heard of Mounjaro, Wegovy, Ozempic, all of these different drugs, And they'll say this, "Oh, but it helped my food chatter, helped my food chatter." In fact, someone came in, they told me it helped my food chatter. I'm like, you must be watching this on social media because no one comes up with this on their own. Help my food chatter. Well, guess what it did? It manipulates your gastric emptying, actually induces something known as gastroparesis, which is delayed stomach emptying. So food stays in your stomach for a longer period of time, which made you less hungry, which will make you eat less if your stomach stays stretched and full for longer periods of times. And you can get all of that, all the benefits of all of these great drugs for just $1,200 a month. So sign me up for that. But this is why you can develop secondary issues going on, because you never ever want to manipulate gastric emptying, which can actually cause the gallbladder to start to precipitate into gallstones, because it's just your gastrointestinal system is not moving the way that it's supposed to. But you can get all that for $1,200 a month. Huh, makes you wonder, okay? And you may say this, but doc, I get tired, shaky, and dizzy when I don't eat all the time. Well, here's my answer for that. You probably have either a fat metabolism issue or you have an adrenal issue that's going on. Well, doc, how do you know that? Well, I want you to think of this. A lot of people do have, if you look down and you are grabbing a lot of fat, you probably do have some level of fatty liver disease. And a lot of people do. And it's not because of alcohol, but it's probably due to the overconsumption of carbohydrates. So, and that can, because remember this, in order for you to be able to metabolize fat, you need enzymes. In order for you to convert your hormones, you need specific enzymes. And a lot of people have a problem being able to break down fat because of problems with fatty liver and things like that. What about an adrenal issue? Well, what gland is actually helping you to regulate or to mobilize sugars when your blood sugars go down? And it's actually your adrenal glands, and it's actually cortisol, which is why, guys, if you are running very low in cortisol, and I will say this, if you're running very low in cortisol, you probably have something very inflammatory that's going on inside of your body. If you look at people who are highly inflamed, they're going to have very low cortisol, and it's not adrenal fatigue as much as just adrenal downregulation. But this is why when I look at some people and they're handling so much inflammation, things like that, and their cortisol levels are so low, this is why I'll tell them, please don't do a 3-day fast. Just please don't do that, because you'll be in bed all day. And I know cortisol gets demonized so much. And just remember, the body doesn't mess up. The body doesn't make mistakes. And so if you tend to be running low in cortisol because there's something that's just very inflammatory that's happening within the immune system, and this might be a lot of different issues, but one of the biggest things can be mold, because people with mold feel tired all the time, tired, hazy, lazy, and crazy. That's what we say. And I've told people, and I looked at some of their testing, and their cortisol levels were just so tanked. I was like, please don't fast. They're like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then they did, and they came back. I'm like, how'd you feel? They're like, I couldn't get out of bed. Okay. Because cortisol is what's helping you to mobilize blood sugars. And this is why, please don't ask me if you should fast or not. Okay. Because we've discussed this a lot. Maybe I'll go over this next week of whether you should fast or not. Because certain people can tolerate it. Certain people just cannot, based on where they're at when it comes to their health. But I will tell you this, I have done a 6-day water fast of water only and minerals. That's all I did. And I lived to tell about it. I made it all the way through. Okay. Wasn't necessarily the funnest thing that I've ever done, but I was able to do it because my body knew how to mobilize fat, and it also knew how to mobilize any stored sugars. But this is why, guys, if you do some kind of fast, you do like a 3-day fast, usually the first day, no problem sleeping. The second day, when cortisol is through the roof because blood sugars are dropping, the body's trying to mobilize sugars. And this is why cortisol is through the roof. And this is why sometimes on the second day, people might have kind of a hard time being able to rest and be able to fall asleep, because they're having a cortisol awakening response because of the fasting. Some people, when they're type 2 diabetic, if they don't eat for 6 hours, they'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Absolutely. Why? Because wide awake, because their body is trying to mobilize sugars at that point because they have really poor blood sugar controls. So if you have to constantly eat and you feel tired, shaky, and dizzy when you don't eat, congratulations. You probably have a problem with your liver and or a problem with the adrenal glands in response to a big inflammatory trigger as well. What about gastric surgery? Say bariatric surgery, okay? You probably have heard of bariatric surgery, and I've had people who have come in who have had bariatric surgery. Interesting enough, they've had bariatric surgery and they put all the weight back on. So let's talk about what bariatric surgery is actually doing. The one of the main ones is known as the gastric sleeve. Okay, it's also called Gastrectomy is the most commonly performed bariatric surgery in the United States. The gastrectomy simply removes a large portion of the stomach. Sign me up. Okay, about 80% of it, leaving behind a small tubular portion like a sleeve. So they're just decreasing the size of the stomach, which is going to decrease the amount of food that you can actually consume. This naturally reduces the amount of food you can consume in one sitting and makes you feel fuller faster. Okay. Here's some surgery side effects. Dumping syndrome, meaning you eat a bunch of food, goes right through you, and then you have diarrhea. So it can cause dumping syndrome. Interesting enough, I know a lot of people have gotten their gallbladder removed. They also have dumping syndrome. There's a reason why that happens. Malabsorption and malnutrition. Anytime that you're shrinking down the size of the stomach, you're decreasing stomach acid, and you can decrease the amount of iron you could absorb. You could also decrease the amount of folate and B12 you can absorb, because that is heavily dependent on stomach acid, especially. You can develop bile reflux. Bile reflux can erode your stomach lining, leading to gastritis and stomach ulcers. You can also develop gallstones, and as a result of that surgery. Interesting enough is sometimes they'll just take it out prophylactically as if you don't need it anyway. Your healthcare provider may give you a prescription medication to prevent gallstones after surgery. Okay. Now, do people lose weight when they have a gastric bypass? The answer is yes. What's the reason for weight loss? Well, you anatomically can't eat more than 500 to 1,000 calories per day. So if you think about it, if you physiologically or anatomically can't eat that much, then a result is going to be weight loss. And guess what? You're going to see your leptin levels start to go back down, which is going to start to control hunger, because your leptin levels, by losing fat, your leptin levels are going to start to go down, and you're going to regain some of that sensitivity actually back. Okay. Now, if you want to do it without doing a gastric bypass, because uh, it's just bad news, then here's how we take people. Number one, you got to handle inflammation. You got to handle inflammation first and foremost. This may be looking at things like food allergies, or doing a stool test, um, looking at blood sugar levels. So this is doing some more advanced testing as well. But I have actually seen people lose 30 pounds in 4 weeks, only because they lose, if they start avoiding some of their food allergies, well, you're going to actually lower down an inflammatory response. And what comes with a lot of inflammation is going to be a lot of swelling that's going to carry and help you retain a lot of water. So a lot of people just lose a lot of water when they start avoiding and start improving digestion with stomach acid and things like that. Once they get to a certain point, that's when you actually want to detox. And people say, you don't need a detox. The liver does it for free. And I'm like, it does it up until a point until it can't anymore. So all detoxes that we're doing is we're helping with liver conversion, specifically to be able to take fat, to be able to metabolize it in the liver, and be able to dump those things within the gallbladder, and then be able to excrete it through the gastrointestinal system. That's actually what detox actually is. Once they get to a certain point, and will measure them with detox, and we'll look at how their body is able to utilize fat. That's why we'll do in-body testing, which is looking at body fat percentage and things like that. But once they start getting their health back, they start getting their energy back, then I'll go over and say, hey, you need to start doing weight training or some level of conditioning. You need to be focusing on your sleep. One way in order to keep weight off is just, I talked about this last week, is just make sure you're getting enough sleep, because if you don't get enough sleep, you tend to overeat as well. And I will say this should all be supported by lifestyle. Okay. This all should be supported by lifestyle. It's not another supplement or some kind of herb or something like that. This can be supported long-term by lifestyle, which is why I always let them know, hey, you should be eating lots of this, lots of liver, lots of sauerkraut. You should be getting this amount of sleep. You should be doing some level of conditioning 3 times a week. Here's what I want it to look like. And think of this, lifestyle is what got you into it. Lifestyle is what's going to get you out of it to help make sure that you don't go back to where you were before. Okay. So if you lost weight through a gastric bypass, congratulations. It forced you to eat a lot less. A GLP-1 agonist, Mounjaro, Wegovy, Ozempic, you ate less. Now, I lost my results. Guess what? You ate more. If you lost your results, well, then you started to eat more. Maybe the problem was between your ears. Maybe the problem was between your ears. And this comes down to, was it hormones or was it something psychological? Is there a self-esteem issue? I mean, what is the issue? And that's why gastric bypass, GLP-1 agonists, things like that, they don't address the problem that might be occurring between the ears. And I'll give you a perfect example. If you follow me for any, certain number of years, you will know that 15 years ago, I was 50 pounds heavier. And I lost all of that and I've kept it off for 15 years. And the reason why is wasn't because I needed a drug to do it, is because I did it and I changed between here. I changed between my ears so that it never ever came back. I was a food addict too. I ate so much doggone sugar. I had every excuse in the book why not to work out. And I just couldn't find the time. But once I made the decision that I'm going to stop letting this yank me around like a dog collar, and I started making the decision to change, that's when I actually started to change. Okay. So here's my final thoughts. I'm going to go over a couple of final thoughts. Number one, never take criticism from people you would never take advice from. Never take criticism from people you would never take advice from. And I, being pretty bold with with my messaging is I have people who try to criticize me all the time, and it doesn't bother me as well, because you know what? I would never take any advice from them as well. I would never look to them as being some kind of beacon of truth when it comes to advice. I will only take advice from a certain number of people, but I'll also in the same light also take criticism from them, because I'll never take advice from people who I would never accept criticism from as well. Okay. Now, here's a final thought for those people who are always asking about one-off supplements and things like that, is work on building health and stop treating disease. Okay. Work on building health. This has to come down with habits. Stop trying to treat disease. I know that people treating disease is what grabs your attention and you want the undesirable symptoms to go away. But maybe what you should be doing is just work on building health and doing the healthy things, do them for a long period of time. That's one of the biggest things that you need to do. And that's why I always tell people, become an anchor, not a flag. Okay. Be an anchor, not a flag. And that's why so many people are just flags and they just get jerked around depending on which way the wind is blowing or what's their new health emergency or the new latest and greatest supplement that they're looking for. And they end up becoming a flag and they just blow in the direction of the wind. What you should be instead is you should be an anchor. An anchor is firmly planted in the ground and it's not moving depending on where the wind is blowing or where the waves are taking you. It's firmly planted in the ground. And we need a lot more people. We need a lot more health practitioners, and we need a lot more people and patients who are willing to become anchors and not jerked around with whatever direction that the wind is taking them all the time. Become an anchor, guys, and not a flag, and start building health, not treating disease. That's why one of the things I want you to do is I want you to get registered. If you're from the Chicagoland area, get registered for our inflammation event. Our inflammation event is Tuesday, October 8th, which is a week from tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. This is an in-person event, which means all you got to do is you go to our Linktree page and then just click on the first link that you will see to get registered for it. But if you are thinking about do it right now. Become an anchor, not a flag. And so I don't care if you don't want to be there. I don't care, but you know that you should be there. Then go ahead and get registered for that. Become an anchor, not a flag. Okay. Become an anchor, not a flag. Get registered for that inflammation talk that's coming up. So obesity, can hunger become a liar? The answer is yes, 100%. Now, you may need help with that. Get registered for the inflammation event. You may not know where to start. Get registered for the inflammation event. You may not know what to do long term. That's okay. Get registered for the inflammation event. It's okay to not know, but it's not okay to just continue living your life refusing to ask for directions. Okay. So become an anchor, not a flag. Get registered for that inflammation event. And remember, hunger can become a liar. You just have to understand what's happening inside your body so you can start taking the necessary steps in order to make sure that you are building health and not treating quote unquote disease. So guys, thank you guys so much for joining me during this live broadcast. I love all of you. I appreciate all of you. Again, if you're watching, just make sure that you just say hello. Let me know where you're watching from as well. Next week, I'll be going live. Um, I don't know what a topic is, but I may be talking about vitamin D. I may be talking about the flu shot. I don't know. I do know there's a tremendous amount of censorship that's going on some of these platforms. That's why we have TWW Plus, the Wellness Way Plus platform. Dr. Patrick Flynn created that so that he can put content on his platform without being censored, because he's been censored quite a bit over the last couple of posts. And you will see censorship go up over the next few weeks. I guarantee it, which is why, I don't know, maybe we should just let it fly. All right. So, guys, I hope to see you at that inflammation event coming up in about a week from tomorrow. I hope you join the Sleep Well Challenge as well to improve your sleep. If you want to watch the replay of this or a replay of what I went over last week with sleep, make sure you go on YouTube or Facebook or Rumble. You'll be able to find it on all those platforms. So, guys, I will see you guys soon. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Be well, be blessed. And as I always say, remember who you are.